Hi, my name is Josh, and as he said, I'm an MD Ph.D. student at Texas Tech University Health Science Center, and that just means that I like science, I like medicine, and I like Lubbock. So, I also went to Tech for my undergrad, and one of the things my friends and I would do is we would drive around town, and we would hold our breaths. And we would only take a breath when we saw a church. So, having been through almost a year of medical school now, I've learned that that was probably not a very good idea. So the thing about the game here in Lubbock is that it actually wasn't that hard. Yeah, and so it wasn't hard because Lubbock actually has the highest number of churches per capita in the United States. So today, I'm going to be talking about religion, or to be more specific, worldview. And my goal is going to be to get each of you to question all your deepest and most dearly held convictions. But my hope is not that you would necessarily leave those convictions. It's also not that you would affirm them. My hope is that somewhere along the way, through a process of genuine inquiry, you would learn enough about your beliefs and the beliefs of others that the place you arrive at is a place of your design, by decision, not by default. Alrighty. Okay, and so to answer my question, what if everyone searched for belief, I'm going to share a little bit of my story with you. So I grew up in Los Alamos, New Mexico, and like many here in Lubbock, I grew up as a Christian in a Christian home. And my belief really meant everything to me. So much so that I had my entire life planned out in 2 steps. Step 1, become a doctor. Step 2, become a medical missionary in Africa for the rest of my life. So it came as a particular shock to me when my dad, who was a leader in our church, left his faith. This was the worst nightmare scenario because at the time, I believed that if you weren't a Christian, then you were going to go to hell. And so I loved my dad. I wanted to do anything I could to prevent anything bad from happening to him. So I immediately tried to bring him back. But it wasn't a matter of just having a come to Jesus conversation. It was a matter of whether or not Christianity was really true. At the time, though, it was impossible for me to have a real conversation with him, though, because he was just so much smarter than me. So I needed to level the playing field. As a consequence of that, from a very early age, I started learning as much science and philosophy that had anything to do with whether or not God existed, because I loved my dad and I wanted to help him. So when I got to college, I interacted with people from many different backgrounds. And just like with my dad, because I cared about those people, I immediately tried to convert them to Christianity. So I generally did my homework first. And when I compared those worldviews to philosophy, science, or general reason, it became abundantly clear that some of them just weren't true. And when I tried to share this with some of the people that believed those things, I was surprised that the most common responses I heard were, "You just have to have faith," or it's not really about whether or not it's true, we just believe this. And seeing that belief without evidence, or even in the face of evidence, was deeply disturbing to me because, again, I thought that if you weren't a Christian, you were going to go to hell. And so, just like with my dad, I cared about those people, and I wanted to do anything I could to try to help them. It was during a particularly meaningful conversation with my college roommate, though, that I realized I had been going about this in the wrong way. I had only been looking for arguments that supported my current worldview. In addition, when I listened to my roommate, I was only looking for ways to show that he was wrong. And what if everybody did that? Would we make any progress? And what are the odds that I just happened to grow up in the one correct religion, or even the one sect of the one correct religion that had a monopoly on truth. I realized that this was colossally unlikely. So I decided to adopt a new golden rule. Treat others' arguments the way you want yours to be treated, and treat others' beliefs the way you want yours to be treated. In this spirit, I spent a year learning about 35 world religions, and as much as I could, I tried to learn about them from the people that actually practiced them. And as I did so, I wasn't trying to learn about them to find out what was wrong with them. I was trying to learn about them for the sake of learning about them. I also adopted what has been popularized by John W. Loftus, a Christian turned atheist, the idea of using an outsider test for faith. And that just means that when you're trying to determine whether or not a worldview is correct, you should use the same amount of skepticism and be just as fair as someone who had not grown up inside of that particular worldview. So my search came to a major turning point during my junior year of college. At that time, I came to realize that each of the individual arguments I had used to support my belief in Christianity were no longer true. And because of that, I left my faith. This wasn't easy for me. It was terrifying to have to look at the world from a completely new perspective. It was horrible for me to lose God. And I also lost some of my closest friends, even ones that I had known for my entire life. But I wasn't willing to sacrifice my intellectual integrity for social acceptance, and it didn't seem like a good idea to me to follow a God if there weren't reasons to do so. But my search didn't end there. In fact, I redoubled my efforts. I added a classics major to my biology major so I could understand the humanities as well as the sciences. I completed an honors thesis in the philosophy of physics on one of the most potent arguments in favor of God's existence. I simultaneously held leadership positions in a Christian apologetics organization and the Secular Student Society. Both sides thought I was a double agent. And I sought out mentors that were older and wiser than me to make the path easier. Until now, 6 years from the time that I began my initial search, I have come to a conclusion. And that conclusion is, figure it out for yourselves. I'll tell you, it's Zeus. No, but seriously, I'm not going to share what my conclusion is with you today, because I don't think that it should really matter to you. I think that what really matters is that you go on a search of your own to find out what you believe. Because my hope is not that you would confirm your current beliefs or deny your current beliefs. It's that somewhere along the way you'd learn enough about what you believe and what others believe that you would arrive at a place that is a place of your design by decision, not by default. So now I'm going to try to persuade you to go on this search, even though for me it took a huge amount of time and I lost some friends, and if you're in certain parts of the world, going on such a search could result in severe persecution. So why go on a search? And I'd like to start just by pointing out that most people don't do this. This is just a map of the world with parsed out by religious belief. So it seems to me if you grew up in Russia, you're probably going to be an Orthodox Christian. If you grew up in China, you'd probably be either non-religious or practice traditional Chinese religion. If you grew up in the Philippines, you'd probably be Muslim. If you grew up in the United States, you'd probably be a Christian. And if you grew up in India, you'd probably be a Hindu. And it seems to me that some of the most important things about a person are what they think about the big questions in life. Where do we come from? Do we have a purpose? What happens after we die? And I don't think any of us really wants to leave what we think about those things up to random factors, such as where we happen to be born. I don't think anybody wants to leave that up to a geographic lottery. So, in addition, I'll give you two more reasons why I think you should go on a search. The first is I think we can all come up with examples of people that have come to believe things that were clearly ridiculous because they decided to default to the beliefs of their current culture. Take, for example, all those ridiculous people that think that the dress is blue and black. It's clearly white and gold. Infidels. But in addition to that, I think that all of us really want to know. We want, if a higher being existed that created the universe, maybe this is just me being curious, I would want to know about that. If there was a life after death, I would want to know about that. If this is the only life that we have, and once we die we're gone, I would want to know about that. And if there's an undetectable flying spaghetti monster that brought everything into existence, I would definitely want to know about that. So I think all of us want answers, and we want answers that are both emotionally and intellectually satisfying. We don't want to be told to believe just because. And above all else, I think that we want answers that are actually true. So before I conclude, I'd like to address two possible counters to my arguments. The first one is, why not adopt the worldview that all worldviews have equal access to truth? Or why not tolerate all worldviews? And I would say that that stance is, in and of itself, a worldview that needs to be fairly examined, just like the other ones, using the golden rule and the outsider test. A second possible counter is science can't talk about God. There's too much to learn. It's an infinite quest, and ultimately, it's going to be futile. To which I would say, if you think that, I think you may be going about this in the wrong way. And I'm going to take a page out of the book of Christian scholar William Lane Craig. He says, and he acknowledges that you can't use science to prove God, and I would agree with him. You can't put God or morality into a test tube, form a hypothesis, run tests to see what happens. But Craig says, you can use science to support premises and philosophical arguments that have theological significance. So basically, we need to use all of our tools in searching for truth, not just a few. We need to use our philosophy to inform our science, and we need to use science to inform our philosophy. And in addition to that, we're in a golden age of science, philosophy, history. We know far more now than anyone has in the past, and on top of that, we have an unprecedented amount of access to information, such that anyone with an internet connection and a caffeinated beverage can go online and watch debates between top scholars on these very issues anytime they choose to do so. And I realize that there are some people in the world that don't have internet or caffeinated beverages, but if you're watching this talk, that's not you. All right, so now I'd like to answer the question, what if everyone searched for belief? And I'd like to take it even a step further. What if everyone searched before belief? First, I think that, and maybe if not everyone did so, but if at least some people did, it would make it easier on the minority of individuals who decide to do so now. And if you know somebody like that, I just encourage you, go easy on them and give them your support. And certainly in places where it can be even dangerous for you to go on such a search, it'd become easier. But secondly, and more importantly, even if no one changes what they believe, genuine understanding is a cross-cultural olive branch that at the very least dispels the fear of the unknown. In conclusion, I think that what you think about the big questions of life, I think that if you care about those big questions, and I think that you should, I'd like to encourage you to go on a search for truth of your own. And as you do so, consider worldviews other than the one you grew up with. and make use of the golden rule and the outsider test. So, my hope is not that you would confirm your current beliefs. It's also not that you would leave them. My hope is that somewhere along the way, you would learn so much about your beliefs and the beliefs of others that you would arrive at a place of your design, by decision, not by default. Thank you.